Good afternoon, everyone. Respected Central Council Member CA Manu Agarwal ji, respected Chairman CIRC CA Devinder Kumar Somani ji, respected Secretary CIRC Dinesh Kumar ji Jain ji, respected Speaker of the today's session CA Harshvardhan Jaju sir, respected members who have joined this virtual CP meeting which is being organized by CIRC today, and the topic which has been taken, that is leadership techniques for professional development, which is again a very relevant topic in the present scenario. So today we have with us a very learned faculty, CA Harshvardhan Jaju ji, who is going to speak on this topic. So before introducing CA Harshvardhan Jaju ji, I request CA Devinder Kumar Somani ji, Chairman CIRC, for his welcome address. So over to CA Devinder Kumar Somani ji for his welcome address.
Thank you, Atul Agarwal ji. Today's learned speaker, my elder brother CA Harshvardhan Jaju ji, ex-chairman of a multinational company and a life coach. My elder brother and good leader and tax-savvy personality, our own Central Council member CA Manu Agarwal ji, chairman of Digital Accounting and Assurance Board. Secretary CA Dinesh Jain ji, moderator of today's program CA Atul Agarwal ji, SICASA chairman, and viewers of this virtual meeting. Very good evening to all of you. Friends, at CIRC, we are organizing different type of programs for the benefit of our members. And today, in continuation of this series of events, in this testing time of COVID era, we have with us a great leader and life coach, CA Harshvardhan ji, who will share his experiences in professional life. Friends, एक सक्सेसफुल प्रोफेशनल बनने के लिए लीडरशिप क्वालिटी का होना बहुत ही जरूरी है. तो जब भी कभी हम प्रैक्टिस में हैं, मोर पर्टिकुलरली इन द एरिया ऑफ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंसी, हमारी अगर लीडरशिप स्किल नहीं होगी तो हम ग्रोथ नहीं कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि हमें हर एरिया में लोगों से डील करना है. तो न केवल प्रोफेशनल नॉलेज जरूरी है, बट प्रोफेशनल नॉलेज के साथ साथ ह्यूमन बिहेवियरल एस्पेक्ट को अंडरस्टैंड करना है और उसमें लीडरशिप रोल अदा करना है. अगर आप एक सक्सेसफुल लीडर होंगे तभी आप तरक्की कर पाएंगे, अदरवाइज तो आप अपनी कंपनी में अकाउंटेंट बन के रह जाएंगे. तो अगर आपको एक सक्सेसफुल प्रोफेशनल बनना है तो अपने अंदर जो छुपी हुई लीडरशिप है उसको निखारना होगा, उसके अंदर कुछ हमें तराशना होगा. और उसी के लिए हमने आज सोचा है कि एक प्रोग्राम हमारे जो मेंबर्स हैं, फॉर द बेनिफिट ऑफ आवर मेंबर्स, वी ऑर्गेनाइज दिस टुडे वर्चुअल मीटिंग with the help of our own CA हर्षवर्धन जाजू सर. तो फ्रेंड्स, बहुत ज्यादा हम आज नहीं बोलते हुए, क्योंकि हम हर दिन कोई ना कोई प्रोग्राम करते हैं, तो ऑलरेडी CIRC की वेरियस एक्टिविटीज के बारे में आपको बताते रहते हैं. बट आज हमारे साथ हमारे जो सेंट्रल काउंसिल मेंबर मनु अग्रवाल जी भी हैं, जो कि टेक्नोलॉजी पूरी काउंसिल में जाने जाते हैं टेक्नोलॉजी के लिए. और तो हम उनसे भी कुछ उनके वचन सुनेंगे और उसके बाद हम हर्षवर्धन जी से लीडरशिप स्किल सुनेंगे, तो किस तरह से हमें आगे बढ़ना है. तो विदाउट टेकिंग मच ऑफ योर टाइम, नाउ आई एम हैंडिंग ओवर द माइक टू MOC अतुल अग्रवाल जी. थैंक यू वेरी मच.
Thank you, Chairman sir. Now I request CA Manu Agarwal ji, Central Council member and chief guest of the today's virtual CP meeting, for his address for the members. CA Manu Agarwal ji.
Thank you, Atul ji, moderator of today's program, the chairman of CIRC, Devinder Kumar Somani ji, secretary Dinesh Jain ji, and the learned speaker Harshvardhan Jaju ji of today's session. A very good afternoon to all the members. Well, friends, it's really good to see a topic being discussed, which is leadership techniques for professional development. Well, in this COVID times, people have started wondering कि leadership कहाँ दिखाने का मौका मिलेगा, कैसे मिलेगा. जैसे हमारे सुमानी जी इस वर्ष चेयरमैन बने, and now well he's a virtual chairman. मतलब सारे काम कर रहे हैं लेकिन virtually कर रहे हैं. इसी तरीके से this is how everything is changing. Well, अतुल जी ने कहा कि और सुमानी जी ने कहा कि टेक्नोलॉजी. वेल आई कैन ओनली शेयर अ फ्यू स्मॉल थिंग्स. जब टेक्नोलॉजी की बात हुई है तो टुडे जो जाजू जी बात करेंगे दैट इज अ डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ लीडरशिप, बट व्हाट आई वुड से टेक्नोलॉजी कैन आल्सो बी वेरी हेल्पफुल इन गेनिंग दिस लीडरशिप. एक बात मैं कई बार कहता हूँ, एक बार फिर से कहना चाह रहा हूँ, फ्रेंड्स द टाइम्स आर चेंजिंग एंड everything, every job, every work which is repetitive in nature will in future be done by machines. उससे को artificial intelligence take over कर लेगी और सारी चीजें बदल जाएंगी. ड्राइवरलेस कार्स आने वाली हैं. We have seen शॉपिंग मॉल्स में कैशियर नहीं होंगे. आप जाएंगे, सिर्फ एक ऐप आपकी पॉकेट में मोबाइल में पड़ी होगी, उसी पे आपकी बिलिंग हो जाएगी. दिस इज हाउ थिंग्स आर गोइंग टू चेंज. सो वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक फोरम के एक सर्वे में ये बताया गया है कि अकाउंटिंग एंड ऑडिटिंग इज आल्सो अ जॉब व्हिच इज रेपिटेटिव इन नेचर. सो द चांसेस ऑफ ऑडिटिंग एंड accounting being done by machines on a scale of 1 to 100 is rated to be some 94-95%. This is a World Economic Forum survey. So this is something which is alarming, or which should at least ring alarm bells within us. It does not mean कि chartered accountants खत्म हो जाएंगे. It simply means that the nature of job being done by chartered accountants will finish, will change. And unless we adapt to this change, unless we are prepared to take a leadership role and change the way we have been working, we will probably be left far behind. Well, एक आध छोटी मोटी बातें बता दूं कि just for this, the Digital Accounting and Assurance Board, which I am heading, is organizing certain short duration courses. 5 दिन के courses हैं, 3-3.5 घंटे के हैं. आज भी 2 courses have started. One has started in the morning and one is about to start in the evening. One is Power BI, the other is Advanced Excel. These are things which chartered accountants, or for that matter, anybody related with finance, should actually learn and should be knowing. So these are small courses which are being organized by this committee. I urge you to enroll to take advantage of this knowledge. Now, well, I would not take much of your time for technical aspects. Now, coming back to the topic of leadership. Well, Jaju ji hain, so I would not speak much, but I would just like to say a few things, 1 or 2 things basically. Ki one thing which is important, according to me, for having a leadership role is positivity. And मेरा एक ये मानना है कि कोई भी नेगेटिव चीज होती है वो इतनी जल्दी प्रचारित हो जाती है, इतनी जल्दी फैलती है जिसका कोई हिसाब. आज पेपर की हेडलाइन आए कि 3 जने कोरोना पॉजिटिव पाए गए, इट कैन बी अ हेडलाइन, बट 50 जने ठीक होके चले गए, इसको कोई नहीं देखता. एक गलत वारदात हो जाती है, उसकी हेडलाइन बन जाती है, व्हाट्सएप पे चल जाता है, उस पे जोक्स बन जाते हैं, बट कितनी पॉजिटिव चीजें इस वर्ल्ड में हो रही हैं उसका कोई जिक्र नहीं. तो फॉर दैट आई से कि हमको अपनी जिंदगी में ये कोशिश करनी चाहिए कि जो पॉजिटिव चीजें हैं उनको भी अप्रिशिएट करना सीखें और नेगेटिव चीजों के बारे में कम से कम बात करें. एक सिंपल सा एग्जांपल है, सपोज आपके सिर में दर्द हो रहा है, कोई आपसे पूछे कि आपकी तबीयत कैसी है, आपको हेडेक हो रहा है, और आप उसको अपनी पूरी राम कहानी बताने लगो. अरे मेरे तो बहुत तकलीफ है, मुझे ये हो गया और मैं कल से परेशान हूँ, मुझसे उठा नहीं, तो उसके भी हेडेक हो जाए. और बजाय इसके आप क्या करो, एक सिंपल स्टेटमेंट, अरे हेडेक है, गेट ओवर, और कुछ पॉजिटिव. सो द थिंग विल चेंज, द टोटल परसेप्शन विल चेंज. सो व्हाट आई बेसिकली बिलीव इज दैट इफ वी make a resolution, if we pass a resolution कि कोई भी positive चीज होगी उसे हमको 5 सेंटेंस में बोलना है, और कोई भी नेगेटिव चीज होगी उसको मात्र 1 सेंटेंस में बोलना है। कोई अच्छा काम करे तो उसकी सराहना कीजिए। जस्ट अनदर एग्जांपल, आपके घर में रोज खाना बनता है, आपकी वाइफ बनाती है, आपकी मदर बनाती है। साल में एक दिन खाना खराब बन जाए, नमक ज्यादा पड़ जाए तो आप बोल देते हो, लेकिन वो 364 दिन जो खाना अच्छा बना है कभी आपने बोला? आप रेस्टोरेंट में खाना खाने जाते हो, एक दिन खराब बन जाए, आप शेफ को बुला लेते हो, मैनेजर को बुला लेते हो, हल्ला मचा दो। किसी दिन अच्छा खाना होता है तो शेफ को बुलाते हो कि भाई आज जरा शेफ को बुला के ला, शेफ डरते डरते आएगा, और उसके बाद अगर आप शेफ से कहो, शेफ यू डिड अ वंडरफुल जॉब, जस्ट इमेजिन व्हाट विल हैपन। सो फ्रेंड्स, वेल दिस इज ऑल व्हाट आई हैड टू से। आई जस्ट अर्ज यू कि इस पॉजिटिविटी के साथ और इसके साथ अगर हम अपना जीवन व्यतीत करें तो आई थिंक इट विल बी हेल्पफुल इन द लीडरशिप रोल which Jaju ji will be talking about. And with this, I wish all the participants have a wonderful time, and the next 2 hours are actually eye-opening and help us become a dynamic leader. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir, for your words of wisdom. Now it's time for starting the deliberation of the today's speakers, CA Harshvardhan Jaju ji. And before starting his deliberation, I would like to give some brief about, he is having a very detailed profile, but I would like to just give brief about his career and about his professional life. He started his career somewhere in 93-95, where he joined his family business. He was mainly into the foods of adversity, especially like he was into the mushrooms. And during that particular period, he started new ideas, where he started as a mushroom grower and processor and 3-piece can maker. I believe after that he started pushing frontiers, where he started the manufacturing of can packs. And I remember while I started my career somewhere in 2000, then DS Group in Noida, they also started manufacturing of can packs, where all products, food products, they were serving into the can pack. So while I was reading his profile, so remember, I immediately recollected like yes, I have gone through with this product, which is really a very wonderful achievement by him. During his professional career, he was involved into direct setting up of aluminum beverages can manufacturing plant, hollow gas NNPB manufacturing plant, can packs, second aluminum beverages can manufacturing plant, and all these for establishing all these plants, there was an investment of around 1,600 crore with 750 strong workforce, and captured Canpack to a position of an industry leadership. Now, if I talk about his career into the corporates, like he started his career in 1996 to 99, he was in a company as a Asia Pacific General Manager in New Delhi. From 99 to 2000, he was with Agro Dutch Industries Limited as an executive director, and he served in Chandigarh and Chennai. From 2013 onwards, he became a member of the board of Bluesum Industries Limited. In 2007 to 2020, he was a chairman, MD, CEO, and chairman of Canpack India Private Limited, which is established in Aurangabad. In April 2020, he decided to start his journey as a wellness coach and leadership coach. So he started as a curator of Small Big Wins. That is with a name like SBW.HVJ coach. And he is a leadership coach with the title like HVJ.coach. So I'm sure we all are going to learn today what all leadership techniques are required for our professional development. So without taking much of the time, I welcome CA Harshvardhan Jaju ji for his deliberation to the members who are present here. And it is a very motivating factor for we all us also, like at present almost 502 members are watching live users. So I'm sure all of them are going to get benefited from the deliberation. So over to Harshvardhan Jaju sir for his deliberation on leadership skills. Over to Harshvardhan Jaju ji.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm very encouraged to see all the 500 people. First of all, my very sincere gratitude to all the participants and to our chief guest, Mr. Manu Agarwal. Thank you so much, sir, for your enlightening words. Devendra Famani ji, I have known him for the past few months, and we have been trying to organize this webinar. Finally, we are successful to do it today. Atulji, thank you for your help in the last week to set up everything. And Dineshji, it's a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much, everyone. First of all, I would just like to pick up the thread from what Manuji was speaking. And Manuji and all the other participants here, you know, on one side, AI is artificial intelligence. And on the other side, AI is also authentic intelligence. So it is time for us to tap deep into our own reservoirs to see where we can bring a genuinity and creativity. And we are going to, I believe we are going to touch upon all these subjects as we go on today. Also, Manuji, you spoke about certain digital training. I hope that under your chairmanship of the committee which you head, we will also have the possibility to learn about digital assets, particularly on the crypto side, things like Bitcoin and the blockchain technology. Next week, I'm going to release a podcast with a gentleman based out of Switzerland, Sheraz Ahmed, who is one of the, at 25, who is one of the most prolific users of the blockchain technology. He gave this wonderful example about how we can crib about very small things in life. And I just want to pick up that example of an headache. And, you know, generally when we have such a problem, we say, I have a headache. Try this the next time, that whenever you have an ache, suppose it is an headache, instead of saying, I have an headache, say, the head is aching. Disassociate yourself with the attachment to the head. Just say the head is aching and you will start feeling much better already, instead of saying, I have an headache. So just to pick up these, I will now share my screen with you and then we will deliberate from there. Okay. I hope the screen is visible. It's okay, Atulji, you can see it?
It's visible.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Visible.
Great, great. Okay, so the topic which was, you know, the title we gave to the topic was leadership techniques for professional development. But honestly, leadership has no techniques. The word technique itself comes from the word technical. And leadership is a vastly general topic. It is probably profound and permeated in all walks of life. So it has no specific as such technique. And we will hopefully discover this in our journey together over today. So I gave this my personal title, calling it leadership or leadershiping. And we will see why we have said this. But because it is such a vast subject, unless I bring my own flavor to it from my own story, I think I will not do justice. And therefore, the idea was to give it one of my own titles also. I will endeavor today that the program is well paced. We have enough time and we are able to do justice with the topic totally. It's not about CA today. And why it's not about CA is because this conversation of being a CA or studying CA, you all know, you have it. It is interwoven in your life. I think what I want to achieve today with this conversation is leave you at the end with some perplexities, with some thinking, with some meaning, with some questions. And probably the answer to your questions will also be in some questions. There may be no definite answer. So that is why I just wanted to say that this is not about CA at all, as far as I am concerned here today. But on the same note, Devendraji, it is for the first time for me in 26 years of passing chartered accountancy that I have seen the prefix CA to my name. I never had the opportunity to have the prefix CA associated to my name. I was so much, you know, into general management and leadership roles, that it never caught my attention in that particular manner. So thank you. You know, I felt good having that before my name today. Our conversation today is going to be a little bit about my story. I'm going to take you through my journey. And I think that there are a far number of people who would have more successful, more intense, more intellectual journeys that I have had. But for whatever reason, today you have bought the tickets to this show. So you have to see me in this show. So we will go through a little bit of my story. After that, we will go through what I call the reason of being. Why are we here in this world? How significant is our life? Can each of us make a difference? We will also try to address this question, that can each of us as an individual, as a human being, have a definite purpose in life? How to think about action. Is there really a formula for that? Is there a way we could always, before taking an action, kind of step back and see, does it make sense? We'll talk a little bit about the key attributes of a leader, and then we will have questions and maybe answers. We will try to have more and more questions and less answers, because I think questions are always an unending search. And the search is important, not giving it a conclusion, but the search. I was in 1990, when I passed my BCom, I was told to do CA. And in 87, when I passed my class 12 and I was doing science, I was told to do BCom. And very obediently, I did both BCom and CA. I first did BCom.
Sir, your voice is not coming.
Yes, I'm back. I'm sorry. I think
Some
because
network issue was there, I believe.
it started raining very heavily over here.
Okay.
And I think that caused an internet outage for a moment. I'm back and I will share my screen. All right. The advantages and disadvantages of being online. So I was told to do BCom, then I was told to do CA. I did it very obediently. I never questioned this. Now, why and what's the lesson in this? And I would like to be very upfront, open, and honest with all of you today, because I think there is something from my own journey which I owe to all of you. When I look back and think, I never questioned this. When my father told me to do these qualifications, I never questioned it. Because I think I just did not know how to think. I had no independent thinking of my own. I was obedient. I don't know whether that is good enough or not, but I was just obedient and I just did what he told me to do. And I think when I look back that why this happened, because if I look at my own household, my father, very successful, but a very dominating individual. We grew up in an atmosphere of fear, and fear doesn't let you ask questions. So we could never ask questions. We could simply do what we have been told to do. On the other hand, my mother, she was a very docile individual. She did not have a voice, or she did not choose to exercise her voice at all. So my submission to all of you, when you step into life, and today you have decided to take this path, but you will grow children, you will raise children. And the question for you to think is that, do I want to give my children independent thinking or not? Do I want to make decisions, or do I want to involve them in the thinking? I think this is what I want to bring to your attention today. Because when we lose our independent thinking, we lose volition. We lose our innate volition, our innate ability to do things on our own. I think there is a damage to the self-esteem and self-worth of an individual, which should be avoided at all costs. Before a couple of days, I was talking to a senior corporate leader, a managing director of a very large organization in India. And we were discussing the subject of how to raise children. And he asked me this question actually, and I replied back to him saying, get out of their way. Don't get in your children's ways. There should be a difference between license and freedom. This the parents should also understand, and this the children should also understand. I think that as citizens of today and tomorrow, our job is to make self-responsible children, not obedient children. We want to make self-responsible citizens, not obedient citizens. I think that is the lesson which I wanted to get across to all of you from this. I'll start with my story. The year was 1994. I was 25. And I joined a business set up by my father. My father was in industry all through. He was a successful corporate executive. He worked for some good large companies. He did good for them. He turned them around. He gave good results for them. He made good teams. Everything was great. And towards the end of his career, he thought that I should be doing something for myself. I have made so many kings. I need to do something for myself, so I will set up my own business. So, but obvious, I finished my education and I joined his business. This was a pioneering business of growing and processing mushrooms on an industrial scale. This was the first ever venture in India. It had never happened before this. The technology, the engineering was taken from some different companies in Europe, and Netherlands was one of the main countries from where we had taken this technology. I had no clue when I joined the business what I was supposed to do. But it did not take me long to figure out, because soon such conditions happened that I was the only one left with this responsibility. I was suddenly deserted without having any experience, without having any exposure. The production started with a super bang, super yielding crops. We very easily packed them in cans and shipped them. It was like a dream coming true. I remember when we were selling the public issue for this company, we were telling in the public issue that mushrooms are white gold. To kind of get wrong with this project, we will have to severely mismanage this project. Otherwise, this project is like white gold. When the product reached our export customers, friends, it was a disaster. There were burst cans inside the container. There were flies, there were insects, and our export customers refused to pay us anything. No monies at all were realized. And we couldn't understand what the problem was, what the business was telling us to do. We had no way how to determine that, because it was the first such business. So as soon as we started the business, it started tanking already. It started going southwards. And the gap was getting bigger and bigger. And my father, who had not seen a downhill in his employment career, went into a very deep depression. He took to the bed. He was a turnaround expert, but this one he succumbed to. While all the burden fell on my head, he took to the bed. Fear overtook him. And fear became his response to life at that point in time. I like to say this many times, that responsibility is a very special word. And when you act towards your responsibility from your emotions, there is a different kind of a response. But when you act towards your responsibility from being emotionally intelligent, there is a different kind of a response. The difference between the first and second response, I think, is the difference between failure and success. I like to talk about this frog story. Actually, we should call it the boiled frog story. You know, if you take a big pan of boiling water and you put a frog in it, the frog will immediately jump out and come out of that. On the other hand, if you take a bucket of cold water and put a frog in it, the frog will start floating in it, it will start swimming in it. And then you start warming the bucket slowly and slowly. The frog will start feeling better first. He will still stay there. And when the water starts getting more hot and the water starts boiling, the frog has no energy to jump out. He will die. I just wanted to share with you from this story that adversity, the boiling water, is the biggest teacher. It is also the biggest opportunity. Staying in the bucket of cold water is like staying in a comfort zone. That is the formula for a complacent life. Adversity is the formula for a life which elevates itself one step after the other. This is what I think. This is what my story tells me. And now the downward spiral in the business has started. Let me tell you a little more details. We had a problem with the cans. Our export customers were crying. We had product which was being rejected at the border of the customs. So I took charge of the can filling line and started asking all people in the company and outside the company different kinds of questions from my understanding. But no one could help me because it was the first modern canning line which had been in India and no one had experience of this. Here I am handling this business. I have no experience. My father, who built this, who has much larger experience in this, cannot participate due to depression. So, and we are in a new city. We were in Chennai when we were doing this because the project had an investment of about 25 crore rupees at that point in time. And we, along with some partners, along with some equity investors, financial institutions, ICICI then was our lead institution, and joint sector from the Tamil Nadu Industrial Development Corporation, we were able to put this size of funds together to set up this business. And I remember at that time, the financial institutions' loans were at 22%. That was the rate of interest for us at that point in time. I remember that when this problem, I was not getting any answers, I remembered that I had gone with my school trip to a library called the US Library. It existed, I don't know whether it's still there, but it existed on Kasturba Gandhi Marg in New Delhi. And as a school trip, we had all gone over there and I was absolutely dazzled and enamored by the range of books, range of subjects, videos, recordings, which was available over there. It somehow stayed with me. And I spoke to myself and said that, why don't I go to US Library? I should find some information on this subject in the US Library. So here I am, I take a flight, I go to US Library. I went there and sat for a week, maybe 2 weeks, day and night, reading on canning and food and drug administration. I was photocopying papers, I was making notes, and I was connecting the dots that what is going wrong in the business which my father has started. That is when I started understanding that mushrooms are something called a low acid canned food. And when you are canning a low acid canned food, it involves many nuances, it involves many details. However, slowly but surely, we solved the problem with our finished goods. But by this time, the working capital had dwindled. There was a very large gap. We were not realizing money from the customers. They, in fact, wanted refund of the damage which had been caused to them in customs clearance and all that. The output of the crop, which started out in a fantastic manner, went down. We had exhausted personal resources. Partners had withdrew support. Creditors were soaring and debtors were dipping. And this is the 25-year-old Harsh over there with no technical experience, with a father who has taken to bed in a new city, with a city which is not convenient for people who speak Hindi and English, who only want to speak in Tamil, and with the board of my company, which had independent directors from TIDCO who were pretty tough. I had absolutely no idea what I was to do. And personal lifestyle had come to probably the lowest I had ever seen. I remember that for probably that period of 1 year, friends, I could not afford a shoe. I was wearing my one and only chappal and going to the office or the factory, wherever it was. Of course, in such a situation, the buck stops at me. And with that responsibility, we stopped withdrawing salaries, personal expenses, of course, came to absolute zero. We just made sure that our staff is somehow able to get the salaries. So that idea somehow of being helpful to others, being responsible to others, always stayed with me. The epitaph, the obituary. I don't know how much I understood, but there was one thing which I understood in this, that we could probably run the business. Thoda sa latak ke, jhatak ke, langda ke, we could run the business. But there was no way we could meet our obligation to the lenders, to the financial institutions. So I went to ICICI and I spoke to this gentleman who was responsible for our account, and I told him, sir, here is my analysis. I cannot pay you from this month onwards because my first installment or interest was due that month. I said, I cannot pay you. And he was like shocked and he wanted to talk to my father, and he came home and he saw my father, who was actually, you know, he had become mute. He had no response left in him. So, and this guy from ICICI, he knew that there is probably no one else other than me who can probably give some kind of life to this. So he said, okay, what do you want me to do? I said, sir, I can try to keep this running as long as I can take. I have no more money to put in. My partners have withdrawn support, and rightly, because of me, they should not be ruining their own financial resources anymore. So they had withdrawn support. So I will just keep the chimney running, sir. Some way or the other, please try to find a buyer for me, because we have exhausted resources. I have to look after my father. I have to look after family. I had also been recently married at that point in time. So that was the kind of obituary which was coming back. And I want to share one very specific experience about a bank with you. Our working capital bankers were Bharat Overseas Bank at that point. And I went to meet the chairman of Bharat Overseas Bank. And he looked at me and he said, oh, so you are the director, the promoter, you are Jaju's son. I said, yes. He said, you are very young. I said, yes. So he said, okay, what can I do for you? I know you are running through a problem. And I told him that, sir, you keep a 25% margin on the working capital. Can you please reduce this to 10%? And he was aghast. He said, how the hell could you even think that you could demand this from me? And I said, sir, this is my problem. This is my personal situation. This is what I have spoken to ICICI. So if you don't do this, I cannot keep the chimney running. So he sat me down. We had a cup of tea. And at the end of that, he says, you know, if I take my proposal to the board, my board would want to meet you. And you know what is your problem? I said, no, sir, I don't know what is my problem. He said, your problem is your age. You are very young. You look too mature to talk this kind of responsibility. So I said, sir, I have absolutely no choice. This is the only thing which I need to request you. Anyway, long and short of it, He cut the margin from 25% to 15%. I could manage something by extending the creditors. I could, by some left and right means, I could defer the electricity bills of the electricity board, and I could keep the chimney of the company running. Till ICICI came back and told me that Tata Tea may be interested. Tata Tea, belonging to the Tata Group, may be interested. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. And then Tata Tea started their due diligence. Friends, it took Tata Tea 1 year. And you can imagine that in all these dire circumstances, I have to keep the factory running for 1 year. And somehow, by the grace of existence, it happened. I was able to keep it running. Tata Tea acquired the property. They acquired the plant and machinery. But we got only 20% of what we had invested from Tata Tea. Because in return, they took all the liabilities, all the overdues, etc., etc. And for me, it was a no-brainer. I had to somehow give my family back a platform again to float and to survive and to keep the head over the water. So this was a joint sector company. We had a lot of tough board meetings. We had senior IAS officers on a board, and my father couldn't attend those board meetings, so I had to go alone. And you know, I never knew what a board was. First of all, I thought a board, the spelling is B-O-R-E-D, boardroom. And the company secretary over there started laughing at me. And anyway, those little things got corrected. And Tata Tea took over after a year. And I then thought that I can indulge in some luxury. So when I returned, I booked the first class AC ticket from Chennai to Delhi. And I came back in what I call luxury from there. Now, the most invaluable part of this phase 1 of my journey were some lessons which I want to share with you. Assumptions. You are all chartered accountants or studying for that, and you make project reports. And the bedrock of every project report is assumptions. The assumptions need to be tried and tested and shaken apart and shaken in front and shaken at the back to see their validity. When we set up this project, when I started analyzing in hindsight, we did not test the assumptions at all. I would like to give you 2 quick examples over here. When we talk about flying, the bird also flies, the ostrich also flies, the flying squirrel also flies. But the flying squirrel has no wings to it. All the other creatures which fly, a bat has wings, an ostrich also has wings to it. But you remember, if someone of you has studied flying, when people thought, how are these birds flying, they actually put on artificial wings to them, to different animals, and tried to go on a high point and fly, and they ultimately landed down the cliff and died because it was not the wings. And there was a clear case that the squirrel does not have a wing. So even in the assumptions, even when there is one anomaly, that assumption is not valid and it should not be accepted and it should not be included to prepare the project report. I think this was a very, very big learning for me. There is another very big example. When Disneyland, Disney company set up its park in Paris. So they set up the park completely on the basis of the Disney park in United States. And the Disney park in United States, it was set up on the same scale, the same number of hotels, the same number of rides. And when it started in Paris, it completely failed. I'm just seeing that some people are raising hands. Do I need to address this now?
We will later on we will discuss question and answer session.
Yeah, okay, okay, fine. So when Disney set up its park in Paris, it was on the same scale and it completely flopped. It was never going full because of one assumption from them going wrong. that the population of Paris is completely different to the population of the Disneyland city where they are situated and the surrounding cities over there. So just one assumption can take away all the success. The second thing which I learned from this is that when you set up something, there are many stakeholders involved. I feel that as Indians, we trust people just on the face of it. We do not put things down in writing with accountability as they should be put. We do not make responsibilities of all stakeholders clear in a very transparent manner. And the result of this all was that for all the problems in our business, only we were responsible. The collaborators were not responsible, the buyers were not responsible, the machine makers were not responsible, because we did not create accountability documents for all the people. The third learning, arrogance. Nothing can be done on the laurels of past history. If you are not changing in life, citing past success as a reason, you are in for big trouble. This is again my personal experience. Past experience is absolutely no guarantee for today and for something what is going to happen tomorrow. This is guised in the form of arrogance. This is guised in the form of pride, in the form of vanity, and this should be taken away from our lives. And the fourth one is we fell short of persistence. I gave up. I thought that there is no other way. I have to sell this at 20%. There is no other way. I had lost courage at that point in time. So I couldn't persist. Persisting without exception is a great quality. And we see how this will develop later on. During every journey, some unforgettable moments happen. And I have this fantastic unforgettable moment, and I call it the old man from United States. There was this old man from United States. His name was Peter Georgi. And he was the stalwart, the pioneer of the mushroom business in United States. And he came to visit us in Chennai. And he told us, see, you know, I have no specific agenda. I'm here only because I like to travel the world and see what is happening in the world of mushrooms, who is bringing new technology, what people are thinking, how are they doing, how is their cost structure. So I just travel the world if I get an opportunity to meet a new mushroom company or a new mushroom business. So he came over to our plant. He saw we were in problems. He saw those problems. He spent a lot of time with me. He had a certain charm, a certain grace, and a certain humility to him, which I cannot forget. And he is the common thread in this presentation, which will keep coming through again and again. So this old man visited us and he went back. And he spent a lot of time with me. And somewhere, I think in both our hearts, we carried something for each other from there. Okay. I hope that everything is properly audible and I am not going at a pace which is inconvenient to any of you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's fine.
Thanks, Devendraji. I will move on to the phase 2. This was, I call the phase 1. When I moved out of this mushroom business of my father, we sold it. The gentleman who was buying all the mushrooms from us in a large way was based out of Netherlands. He belonged to a company which is called Shelter. And he said that, Harsh, you have somehow started understanding a little bit of the tricks and trades of this business. So why don't you join me? I have a large vision of buying mushrooms from Asia, from not only from India, but from Indonesia, from China, from Vietnam. So you open a small office in India, you join me, and you start looking after all the buying activities. And I had really no other opportunity in my hand. I wanted to get back to making some earning. And I took this opportunity right away. And this was the time when I learned with him in those 3-4 years. I traveled to these countries. I met many different factory owners. I learned about quality control. I learned about logistics. I learned about teams. I learned about different kind of business businesses, not only mushrooms, but olives and gherkins and tomatoes and all that stuff. And then in 1999, a company called Agro Dutch, which was based in Chandigarh, they approached me. And Agro Dutch was then becoming a successful Indian mushroom business. And they said that, Harsh, look here, you have got some experience and we have got large plans in the mushroom business. So why don't you come over, take over our sales and marketing? And why don't you also take over the finance function of the company? And I said, okay, let's make this trend. Let's make this change. And I moved over to Agro Dutch from there. So Shelter and Agro Dutch were the two opportunities which came in phase 2 for me. What was the lesson immediately I would like to share with you is that there are good intentions, but good intentions have to be combined with strong directional efforts, which creates a silent recognition, which creates a word of mouth that is helpful. Neither to join Shelter, I had to give an interview. He had just seen my intentions and actions in the past. And neither to join Agro Dutch, I had to give an interview. They had just seen my intentions and actions in the past. When you study businesses, you would be studying case studies, you would see that many companies put strategies together, but those strategies do not become successful. The primary reason for that is strategies remain at good intentions unless you put action behind that, unless you put skin in the game with the strategy. You need to put talent, your talent. You need to put money, your money. You need to put time, your time into the strategy for it to turn into some kind of an execution. A strategy without execution is of no use at all. By the way, just for all of you who are interested in reading books, there is a lovely book called Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast. It just highlights how a company culture is much more important than a company strategy. A good company strategy will be nowhere without a good company culture. So if you would like to read that, pick it up, please. And now the boiled frog story came back to me in Agro Dutch. It was not leaving me. From 1999 to 2007, I was in this company. And I got the opportunity to meet every retail and institutional customer in the United States. Call it Aldi, Kroger's, Walmart, Cisco, IPM, you name it. We took the Indian mushrooms all over US, all over Canada, Israel. But this also had its own frog story. One of my main achievements was Agro Dutch was an institutional seller. They were packing large cans and selling. We moved into small 4-ounce cans and started selling to the retail customers in the United States, which expanded our market and our margins in a very significant manner, by the way. So what happened with the frog story? In 2002, we get calls on a single day. We start getting calls from different geographies across United States from different customers, complaining about a foul smell in the cans. And they say that this foul smell is like a rotten egg or a hydrogen sulfide smell, those who remember a little bit of chemistry. And we had a huge stock in the warehouse. The peculiarity about mushrooms is that it is a 70-day cycle. So mushrooms keep growing. We had a huge stock in the warehouse. And somehow we were staring at a problem, looking at the number of calls we were receiving, that we have a huge problem on our hands. This is a food product. Food and Drug Administration is going to get involved in this. And we will have to pick up our product from the shelves and recall it. We have to take it away from the US shores and bring it back or pay dumping charges and destruction charges over there. And of course, no money can be realized. We lose everything what there is. Everyone knows that a crisis presents on the other side an opportunity. What happened? Let's take a quick look here. Agro Dutch made me the chief firefighter for solving this problem. They said, Harsh, You know mushrooms, you know cans, you know the customers, you become the chief firefighter for this. Long story was that the quality of cans was a problem. It was inferior quality of the cans. And India had no laboratories which could give us concrete results for this. But through a detailed spec study of the materials which go into making a can, a combination of lab results from LFRA, which is Leatherhead Food Research Association in United Kingdom. I remember flying with 100 cans to them by the night flight and coming back by the next night flight after the testing. I approached NTPC, who have a very advanced, at that time they had a very advanced metallurgical lab in Noida and Shriram Laboratories. We put together different tests from these different laboratories and we came to the conclusion that the coating of the can had a problem and we isolated the problem somehow. A crisis should never be wasted, friends. We decided to integrate backwards and set up our own food can making factory. And for that, I was able to secure deferred financing from the suppliers in Switzerland. Now, we were sitting already on a lot of problems. So obviously the bank said that you first find some solutions, then come to us. Till that, we are putting you on a freeze. But when the bank saw this intention, this persistence of what we are doing, they came back in and they started lending us support again slowly. And result was that the company came back to track. Now, before we go further, I want to do one poll with all of you. And the poll is about the difference between a firefighter and a fire marshal. There are 4 options. Firefighters are superior to fire marshals. Fire marshals are superior to firefighters. Fire marshals and firefighters have no difference or none of the above. So I'm going to launch this poll now. And I would look for your votes on these. I hope you are all seeing the poll and the timer is there. We will give it 20-25 seconds. Now, I see a lot of responses coming in. We have still only about 80 people who have polled, so I would request everyone come in. We need all the voting. You know that, how important voting is in a democratic country. We'll give it 10 more seconds. All right, I'm going to end this poll over here. We have about 125 who have voted and I'm going to share the results with all of you. So the results are there. 35% people say firefighters are superior. 48% say fire marshals are superior. 12% say they have no difference. So if we look at it broadly, about 50% are saying fire marshals are superior. 50% are on the other side. They are saying something different. I'll stop sharing this. Close this. And go on. And I will come back to why I asked this. So the company was on track again. The lessons were persist without exception. Here I found that the owners of AgroDutch, in spite of the calamity which had fallen on them, wanted to persist. They did not want to give up. And I think that was the difference between my last experience and this experience, that in spite of a life-threatening problem, they had the courage to face it. The second lesson is be a fire marshal, not a firefighter. AgroDutch, I was just a firefighter, always solving the problem after the problem had occurred. Fire marshals are those people who are looking at how the fire can happen and make risk mitigation strategies. So my big lesson in this company was that risk management has to be in advance. It is a very detailed subject. A lot of thought has to go into into putting your risk together, allocating them risk priority numbers, and finding mitigation plans for them. Again, there was something unforgettable here also. And it was that same old man from United States, Fred Georgie, who visited here. And he visited here much more because I had a longer tenure over here. He was coming every 2 years. And he got very excited when he saw that we set up a can making line. And he spent really a lot of time. And I used to wonder, this owner, why is he so warm? Why is he so interested to know about things? One difference was that I had converted him into a prime customer over here. He was a large grower of mushrooms in United States. So I told him, sir, you don't do canning. We will supply you canned mushrooms from India. You divert your production into the fresh market. I think we will be able to be competitive and you will be able to also be more competitive. And it worked out. So I had converted him into a very prime customer. I will proceed. The phase 3 gets a little deeper now. I started now to look into improving the can making technology. And that is where I realized that there are something called beverage cans, out of which you have a chilled beer or a Coke or a Pepsi or sometimes juices. And I realized that there is no manufacturer of beverage cans in India. I started to find out more about this project. So, of course, one way of finding out more is to read technical magazines which are available to you, and I was doing that. But I also approached my owners in AgroDutch and I asked them that, sir, would you be interested in such a project? And they say, find out, but probably we are happy with what we are doing at this stage. So I started writing to the 3-4 large corporations in the globe who have this technology and who are global players. They are companies called Ball, Rexam, Canpack, Silgan. All these companies, I started writing to them. And, you know, imagine an email coming from an individual with a Gmail address. I started getting responses from some of them. Please, sir, don't send us unsolicited emails. We have very good teams. We don't require any inputs from you. We know what we have to do in India. So, of course, that was a little demotivating, but I kept my persistence on because I had learned that persist without exception. And then on one trip to the United States, on a marketing trip over there, I was sitting opposite this old man. I was the seller and he was the buyer. We concluded our discussions. And then there was a life-changing moment. I asked the old man, sir, can I ask you something? He said, of course. I said, sir, I want to bring this 2-piece can making technology in India. You are very well connected in United States. You have a large business. Can you connect me to someone? I want to see what this technology is and bring it to India. And he looked at me in the eyes and says, oh, you really want to set up a 2-piece can making plant in India? Do you know how much it costs? I said, no. He said, it costs $100 million. One plant costs $100 million. So I said, well, sir, there will be some ways. I would still like to pursue this. So he picks up the phone and he calls someone. He speaks to him and he said, see, I have this young man from India sitting opposite me. He wants to set up a 2-piece can making plant in India. I will give him your number, talk to him, meet him, and take the matter forward. And I'm surprised with the authority with which he was speaking on this phone. He kept the phone. He wrote down a name and a number on a piece of paper and gave it to me and said, you please contact him. I said, sir, if I may ask you who this is. He says, this guy is the chief executive officer of a company called Canpack. And Canpack is my company. And like, I was completely aghast. He said, I own 100% of Canpack. I am the individual owner shareholder of Canpack. And I never knew all these years since he had been visiting me in 1994 that this man had a company in two-piece can making called Canpack. And so this was a complete serendipity for me. And now when I look at in hindsight, I can always think the way he took interest in finding out about India or finding out about the can making factory which I had set up over there. So I did not experience this kind of serendipity anytime after. And there is no such thing as coincidence, which we may call as a coincidence. It's probably God's or existence's own way of remaining anonymous. That is how I would like to say this. So, in nutshell, I convinced the Canpack owners that please come to India. I think there is a large opportunity. They came to India. I showed them across several places in India. I introduced them to my owners. My owners said, no, we don't want to do this project. Canpack said, okay, we are willing to take the risk of setting up a project in India. And that is how in 2007, the journey with Canpack started. They came to India and they said that we will set up the project, and I was hired. And I was again hired without an interview. I just want to tell you, I'm 51. I have never given an interview in my life. I get so scared when if someone would tell me, Harsh, you have to give an interview. I have absolutely no experience of doing that. So Canpack came to India. We finalized. I was selected as their MD and CEO. And for the first 9 months, from late 2007 till middle of 2008, I was the only single employee of the company living in a simple hotel because I had moved from Chennai to here with one taxi for travel and the taxi's boot as my office. Again, the frog story had to happen. At the very same time, friends, the world's largest beverage can maker, which was a company called Ball, also invested in India, and they also brought a plot in Aurangabad. So here, suddenly we have a crowd. We had no one in India to set up can making, and suddenly now we have a crowd. And the problem with this is that a can making factory capacity is 650 million cans per annum. And the Indian market was only 200 or 300 million cans at that point in time. And here 2 factories are coming up with 650 million each capacity, a total capacity of 1.3 billion cans. And this was a huge, huge challenge for me, but I knew I had probably no other way. Either I make Canpack successful or I fail for life. And the difference was to happen in speed. I had to make sure that Canpack scores first in every facet of project execution. The result was this, that in 6 months' time, Canpack's 25, 30%, 40%, maybe even 40% building was up and erected. Ball had hired 15 people. They were sitting in a nice office, but they had not been able to kick off any work. And I was the only single employee of the company, and we had reached that stage. We have all heard very good stories, many inspirational stories, how small teams, how small companies are able to take on large companies because they are of their agility, because of their nimbleness. This, I think, is a story in itself of how this had happened. And the result was this, that Canpack came up and Ball abandoned the idea of coming into this country at that point. I think it was an intelligent decision. Otherwise, it would have spoiled the market totally. In 2014, I was also made the chairman of the company. From 2008 till 19, we set up 3 mega projects in India. We employed 750 people. We established a strong business with a great team and a great culture in the business. The alchemy and culture of a team created at Canpack India resulted in establishing leadership in our products. We absolutely had the best customer relations. And for that, I have a lot of gratitude, because nothing happens as an individual. The support of the group and the team over here has been paramount for me in achieving that. I want to take a step back and talk to you about one equation, which I call the LCP equation. every business, every company is looking for performance. They are looking at the results at the end of the year. How much did we make? Performance. But friends, the one thing which has the maximum impact on performance, there are many factors which impact performance. It is your location, it is your product, it is your quality. But the one thing which has the maximum impact on performance is the culture you are able to create in the business. And there are some absolutely astounding research studies available on this. So here is performance. And behind that performance, the biggest push comes from the culture which you have created in the business. And behind that culture is the behavior of the leadership of that business. So I call this the LCP equation: leadership, culture, performance. If you look at it, performance is tangible, but culture and leadership behavior is intangible. I just want to highlight over here that it is the intangible which makes such a big difference on tangible results. Don't let this ever go away from your learnings. Let's do one more poll before I go to the next one. And this poll is called your dialogue with yourself. 4 options. My dialogue with myself is often negative. My dialogue with myself is often positive. I have no dialogue with myself, or I don't have my own dialogue. I do what I'm told. I will launch this poll now. There you go. It is on your screens now, and let's give it a minute. Don't feel shy of telling the truth. We'll give it another 10 seconds and then we will end it. Okay, I'm ending this now. 185 people have polled, and here is the result. Very encouraging result from this group, where 3/4 of the group says my dialogue with myself is often positive. A huge round of applause for all of you. And 1/4 of the group is on the other side with either a negative or a no dialogue, or doing what they are told to do. I will stop sharing this poll. Here is the results. 75% positive and 25% on the other side. I'm stopping the share now. Be a convict of conviction. I have faced innumerable situations in this tenor with government authorities, customers, and internal people of the company. But I can tell you one thing, my friends, that conviction helps. Let that conviction inside you be nurtured. Hear it. Give it some independent thinking. The majority of you are doing that. But those around you who are not doing that, try to be of help to them. I would like to recommend over here, there is a book by a gentleman called Joseph Murphy, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. I would encourage all of you to read it. It is available in several languages. English is the original, so I believe that's the best one. But please do read this book. I think it will do a world of difference and even take your positivity to a higher level. I will move on. So my reason of being, or my ikigai, as they say it in Japanese, I found that my ikigai, my flow, my excellence happens in learning and building culture. I think that learning is a function of getting behind the scene, doing what you get attracted to, and culture is a result of building people, building volition in people. Building people means building volition, building intrinsic motivation, giving a meaning to life to them, for them. And as we are in 2020, it is a year of new normal. I have moved into a new role of helping MSME leaders and businesses raise their conscious perception. I also started creating new podcasts, and I got followed, I don't know why, by PM Modi on Twitter. As we talk, I am helping 15 different leaders with their leadership journeys and business thinking. I have also joined the boards of a couple of companies as an independent director. And I host, I believe it's an interesting podcast called Small Big Wins. If you get a chance, please do take a look at that. Lessons. Persist without exception. And you can do with culture much more than you can do with money. The effect can be absolutely amplifying and multiplicative. So what helped me during this journey? I think I have a strong sense of understanding where sense of urgency is required. And I am able to execute that with a pretty good strike rate, I would say. You have likely heard the saying, a jack of all trades is a master of none. This saying says, it warns against the futility of pursuing too many disciplines. Be a specialist, it says, or you will be nothing. But you'll be surprised to know that there is an extension of this saying. And that goes, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. I have kept my learning journey on, having done a fair amount of stuff on the way. I have done some stuff at Harvard. I have done yoga in a very detailed manner, doing the teacher training program. I have done a diploma in executive coaching for leadership development and a few other things. So don't be afraid of doing more things. I think as you go later in life, you are able to make mental maps which are able to give you much more creativity than having done just one thing. Building relationships, that has helped me a lot. But what do I mean by building relationships? For me, a relationship building means being helpful even when he or she doesn't need the help. That is my simple way of creating relationships. And we discussed this, intangible is more important than the tangible. Mathematically speaking, my romance, my corporate romance, or your romance with your subject, can it endure without crisis of a midlife? I think it can. I think you need a vision and you need persistence without exception for a continuous evolution. I think it is very, very important to build culture. Culture comes from your own volition and being able to give meaning to other people's life, creating that intrinsic motivation in them. That is where culture comes from. So evolution and culture. And when you put evolution and culture together, the show goes on. There is continuity. This is my equation so far in life, which I wanted to bring in front of you. Ikigai. What is Ikigai? Let's take a look for a couple of minutes. Some of you may know this, but it's not a bad idea to go through this again. Look at the bottom circle. What can you be paid for? Look at the left circle. What are you good at? The intersection of this is profession. What are you good at? The left circle with the top circle, what you love. If the intersection yields passion. What you love and what the world needs the intersection leads to a mission. And what the world needs and what can you be paid for is the vocation. When all these four able to come together, you are able to find your sweetest spot. And many times for many people, that sweet spot is coming through a lot of pain. It is coming through a lot of difficulty. But then that is what gives you your reason for being. There is my site, hvj.coach, where you can find my podcasts. I have a comic strip which I release every week. I have a podcast which I release every 2 weeks, and I have a blog which I release as and when I want, and there is some information about me. If you wish to connect with me, it could be either LinkedIn or Twitter, both, and my handle is hvjaju for both. I want to go on and talk about the fact that can we all live a life of permanent purpose? How significant is my life? Do I make a difference? Can we all have these questions answered? And I have a beautiful story which I use for years, and I call that the story of the butterfly effect. Allow me to present this story to you. This guy is a guy known as Norman Borlaug. This story of butterfly effect, I heard first from a gentleman called Andy Andrews. And he recites this story in a beautiful manner. And Andy Andrews says that once he was staying in a hotel and he came down into the lobby and he was watching the news and CNBC Person of the Week was running. And in that Person of the Week, Norman Borlaug was given the title of Person of the Week. Now, friends, Norman Borlaug is the person who created the hybrid varieties of wheat and corn. When the whole country was going through a famine, this hybrid variety of wheat and corn is estimated to save 2 billion lives, 200 crore people. And Norman Borlaug was the man behind creating that variety. And what is Norman Borlaug being nominated for? Person of the Week. I think that's a very big joke. But I'll take the thread of the story further from here. Norman Borlaug became the head of an agricultural center in Mexico. And this agricultural center in Mexico was mooted and put forward by a gentleman named Henry Wallace, who was the Vice President of United States under President Roosevelt. He was very fond of agriculture, and he said that we must have hybrid varieties. So he put up the station in Mexico, and Norman Borlaug was made in charge, and that is where Norman Borlaug developed these varieties. So the question now is whether Norman Borlaug is responsible for saving these 200 crore people, these 2 billion people, or is Henry Wallace responsible for saving these 2 billion people? Who is it? The Person of the Week was Norman Borlaug. Should it have been Henry Wallace? But if we go back a step further, when Henry Wallace was a small child, he had a neighbor called George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver, some of you who may have some interest in agriculture or a background may have heard of him. He is the person who made some 260 inventions about peanut. He made some 80 inventions about sweet potato. So a through and through agriculturalist. So he was the neighbor of Henry Wallace's parents, and George Washington Carver was going out on a weekly expedition into the forest and farmlands. And Henry Wallace used to tag along with him. And that is the time when Henry Wallace got exposed to botany and agriculture and plants and farms and crops. and he developed his liking for the subject from there. So now the question is whether Norman Borlaug or Henry Wallace or George Washington Carver, who was responsible for saving these 2 billion lives, unless we decide that let's take a step further and go to the home of Moses and Susan Carver, who had farmlands in United States, and these farmlands were attacked by raiders, and the raiders took away all their produce, all their animals, and Moses and Susan Carver had a friend over there who had come to stay with them. They took away that lady and her child also. And these Moses and Susan Carver were completely devastated. And the next day, Susan told her husband Moses that, dear husband, all I want is let everything go away, but please bring my lady friend back and her child back. Moses said, okay, I will do my best. He somehow found out where those raiders were. He approached them. He said, see, I have one strong black horse left, which you forgot to take away. I will give this to you. Give me the lady and the child back. The raiders agreed. They met at a decided point. The horse was given to them, and they threw a sack at him, and he caught that sack which had that child, and he just heard them shout that the lady is no more, she is dead. He took that child home. He opened him at home. He was, of course, a weakling, crying, almost in unconscious state. And Moses and Susan Carver looked at that child over there, and they told him that, my son, we will give you our name. And that is how they gave him the name of George Washington Carver. Now the question is that to save those 2 billion people, who was responsible? Norman Borlaug, Henry Wallace, George Washington Carver, or Moses and Susan Carver? Who was responsible? Unless we can keep going on, we can keep checking the history behind Moses and Susan Carver, and probably we can keep going on all night to find out who is responsible. How far can we be going back? And how far forward can we go into your lives? The lesson is that the choice you make and the action you take matters. We can all live a life of definite purpose. It matters, friends, not only for you, not only for your family, not only for your community, not only for your city, not only for your countries, but the choice you make and action you take matters for all of us, and it matters forever. And this beautiful example says it all. Yes, we all can have a life of definite purpose, a definite meaning. One second, I'm not being able to forward the presentation. I may have to just put it on again. Let me just share the screen again, please. Yes, so that is where we were. Yes, it matters for all of us and forever. And again, the screen has stopped. Sorry, there is I need to share the screen again. So the big point is, think about your actions from this point of view, that whatever you are doing today matters for all of us. It matters to my children, and what I'm doing today matters to your children. That is the accountability we need to have for each other. Just wanted to say that just thinking about this subject in the last few days, I have written a few blogs which are available on my website, and they are particularly for COVID, where I have written about the self-actualized virus. That universal purpose will bring universal consciousness. So if you are interested, you can just take a brief look at that. Time for our final poll today, and this I call the success poll. What is success for you? To become rich, super rich, to become famous, super famous, to become rich, super rich, and famous, super famous, none of the above. Let me start this poll now. Launching it, it's on your screens. And let's give it 1 minute. Having the maximum participants for this poll. Okay, another 3 seconds to go before I stop. All right, I'm going to end the poll and then I'm going to share the results with you. The results are on your screen. 40% say it doesn't matter for us to become rich or famous, but the remaining 60% say that it is becoming either rich or famous or both. All right. So 40 and 60. Closing the poll and moving on. Philosophy is very important for leadership. And the great philosopher, Henry David Thoreau, he has the best definition of success as I see it. He says, if the day and the night are such that you greet them with joy and life emits a fragrance like flowers and sweet-scented herbs, it is more elastic, it is more fluid, it is more starry, it is more immortal. That is success. That is your success. So I don't know if you are looking for an answer from me, what is success? I don't know. But I really like what Thoreau says about success. I like the simplicity. I like the groundedness. I like the rootedness of this. You know, when we draw our most inspiring lessons from Bhagavad Gita about leadership, it is absolutely not wrong to say that leaders should learn from philosophy. And there is a connection here which I make with Vedanta about actions. There are 3 types of actions. There is a selfish action, which is for the individual. There is an unselfish action, where the individual is not selfish about him, but it is maybe for his office, maybe for his family, for his community, for his city, for his country. And then there are selfless actions, where it is not about him, it is not about anything else. It is simply about the fact that he is doing something because that is his duty to do. He is doing it because he ought to do that. So this story about the butterfly effect, just try to see it with your own wisdom in these 3 actions, in the light of this, please. I have to, as a chartered accountant and as all of you being CAs or studying CAs, I have to talk to you in a little bit of accounting language before I close. And that accounting language comes from Brian Greene. He's a physicist. And he says, the ledger of birth and death, with entries more numerous than stars in the galaxy, will balance with dispassionate precision. It will not need a chartered accountant to make it balance. Brian Greene, you must listen to his podcast, which is available on a website called Pioneer Works. It is absolutely enamoring to hear this physicist who connects philosophy into all his physics. You remember when I started the session today, I had a title, Leadership and Leadershipping. Why? Let's see if you can make out the answer. I live on earth at present and I don't know what I am. I know that I am not a category. I am not a thing, a noun. I am not a thing, I am not a noun. I seem to be a verb, an evolutionary process, an integral function of the universe. I am not a noun, I seem to be a verb. Leadership is a noun, leadershipping is a verb. I just wanted to tell you that when Devendra told me that I should share my story, it was a little bit of a dilemma for me. But then I thought that if I don't share the story, there would be probably no difference between what I am bringing out in front of you from some books or from some literature which I like, and just another professor of an institution. So thank you, Devendra, for that insight. Thank you for allowing me to bring the verb. Thank you for allowing me to bring the leadershipping into this. And with that, I just want to say, be a verb, not a noun. Think about this with my very sincere gratitude to all of you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful deliberation. I'm sure all members must have got enlightened. I would like to say one thing as far as the poll which you have taken for last, where we were people were asking for whether they wanted to be rich or they wanted to be super rich or a famous. According to me, while we talk about the success, success is one thing where if we are satisfied, whether we are rich or we are not rich, whether we are famous or not famous, but if our inner conscience is giving a satisfaction, then according to me, that is the success. And if inner conscience is not giving a satisfaction, then even if we are famous or we are rich or we are super famous or we are super rich, I don't think that we would be able to survive. This is what is my perception is. Because every time in that case, we might be counting the problems only. Even I have seen the people who are super rich, who are super famous, but still facing lots of problems. And we have the recent example in front of all of us, the case of Sushant Singh. He was rich, he was famous, rather he was a super famous, but still he could not survive because somehow he was not mentally satisfied, he was not happy with his life. So what is important is inner satisfaction is more important, and then only we can say we are successful. So this is what my perception is regarding the success or regarding to become a famous or a rich. It is really a very wonderful deliberation, and the wonderful thing is the house was full since inception, and members are continuing with us. They are watching your deliberation, they are noting the things, and I'm sure like if we get the PowerPoint presentation also, which we would be, where our members would be able to get the benefit from this PowerPoint presentation, then it would be additional support to all the members. And the way you presented the things and the way you presented your case study, it was really a very motivating and very informative. So I'm sure members might have got the benefit from the deliberation which you have given. There are there are two questions, sir. I would like to read the questions quickly. First question is, what is the cynical puppeteering of people? This is the first question.
Please repeat it.
What is cynical puppeteering of people?
Is it in the chat? Is it in the Q&A?
Yeah, it is into the question answer. It is into the question.
What is cynical puppeteering of people?
Yes.
Wow, that's quite a question.
Yes.
I think, well, I don't know in which context you ask this, but if I can make that out, I think that two kind of things can happen. A man or a woman can become a puppet because of his her own doing. But I think there is always a story to that. And because of some kind of uh, scenario which has been there in his or her own life, causing some kind of disturbance, some kind of dent in the personality, that this puppeteering starts happening because of the mind becomes so prevalent that it doesn't give the intellect a chance to interfere and think properly. The mind is doing all the job for you. Emotions are doing all the job. Emotional intelligence is not able to come in. So I don't know, my friend, if I have answered your question well enough or not, but that is when it becomes cynical, when you are not able to take a pause, when you are not able to transfer from emotions to emotional intelligence, when you are not able to transfer from the mind to the intellect.
I think member is there, CA Priyansh Suryavanshi. He is writing in the question answer box itself. I am looking for this answer from last 1 year, cynical puppeteering. So I am sure he might have got his answer. Another question, sir, from CS Saurabh Tripathi. He is asking whether independent and genuine thinking and leadership is honored in corporate world when there are already self-proclaimed leaders and thinkers as MDs and directors who says to follow them.
Yes, both Priyansh, it was a good question, and Saurabh also a very, very good, very relevant question. It is difficult, Saurabh. I think particularly in companies who want to manage themselves with a black and white approach completely. There, the human emancipation becomes very difficult. The human freedom, the human creativity almost dies down over there. But on the other hand, I think, every corporate has to have a certain framework. The problem is that in that framework, if people or leaders start micromanaging, again, the difference between a license and freedom needs to be understood by all. On the other hand, I think there are equally large groups who are very people oriented and who want to give all the chance to human creativity and human will. And I call amongst them Tata's, Aditya Birla Group. I think these are companies in my experience who have a lot of people importance.
So I'm sure both of the participants might have got the answer of their questions. Anyone, any member wanted to have any question, and then they can post their question in question answer box. I think 2-3 members have raised hands, but they have not posted their question.
If there is no question posted, I want to share something for 2-3 minutes if we have the time.
Yes, sir. Please, sir.
Okay. There was this old grandfather surrounded by his grandchildren and narrating a story to his grandchildren saying that there were once upon a time 2 kinds of wolves. One wolf was very deceitful. He was jealous. He had hatred. He had anger. He had negativities. He had inferiority. He had superiority. He always wanted to use force. And there was the other wolf who was always positive. He was kind. He was compassionate. He was wanting to help. He was wanting to find solutions to things. He was wanting to give people the chance to use their creativity, use their wisdom. So this young girl, the youngest of grandchildren, then asked the grandfather, okay, grandpa, but which wolf wins? He said, wait, I haven't completed yet. These fights, he said, the grandfather said, are also going on within each individual, a fight between negativity and positive. The wolf which wins is the wolf which you feed. It is your individual responsibility. What are you feeding? If you are feeding negativity, that is what comes to you. If you are feeding the wolf which is positive, that is what comes to you. I just wanted to, bring this up because I think this inherent dialogue which we all keep having with ourselves, needs to be positive, something with which Manuji started the session today. And I thought in the end, I should give a small story to just substantiate that how as individuals we have this fight within all of us. And we are the ones who are feeding this fight. The buck is stopping at us, no one else. That's all, Atulji.
Really a wonderful session, sir. I request CA Manu Agarwal ji, if he's there. I think Manuji is not there.
Hey, Manuji left, sir. Manuji left.
Manuji left.
Left.
Okay. So
Sir, we can allow these two participants who raise their hand.
I think two participants have raised their hands. Sir, can I
Allow them?
talk
Sure.
here? Samresh,
allow
ji, you can ask the question, sir. Samresh ji and Abhishek ji. Samresh ji, are you all available? I think, sir, they might have raised the hand by mistake because I have allowed to both of them, but they are not able to.
Go ahead.
They are not asking for. So if you allow, if you permit, then I can go towards conclusion of this session. Chairman, sir,
Yes, sir.
if you permit,
Yes, sir.
then I
Yes, sir.
can ask
Yes,
the
sir.
Secretary, sir, for his vote of thanks. So before inviting Secretary, sir, I once again would like to convey my sincere regards to the speaker of the today's session, C.A. Harshvardhan Jaju, sir. Your story was really important for each one of us. We can understand how we can start the leadership. And as I normally say to all my fellow members, even to my students also, like if you go outside India, in most of the companies, especially like if you go to Singapore and Malaysia, most of the companies are being headed by the chartered accountants. So as a chartered accountant, you have a lot of potential, and I'm sure you can touch the sky that is in your hand. So now, without taking much of the time, I request CA Dinesh Jain ji for his formal vote of thanks. Over to CA Dinesh Jain ji.
Thank you very much, Atul sir. Respected CA Manu Agarwal ji, our CCM.
Dinesh ji, can I stop for a minute because I got one question,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
if you allow, because
Yes,
we
sir,
have
please.
we have time.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Harsh
sir.
ji,
Allow them.
do you mind if I ask a question on behalf of?
Yes, of course. Please, sir, please.
A member is asking for, sir, CA Atul Aswal is there. He's asking for, can you please explain the butterfly effect in short words?
By now, you would have understood my style. I like to give a story always. So please bear me for 2-3 minutes. See, in 1963, there was a thesis submitted to the New York Academy of Sciences on the butterfly effect. And the thesis was this, that if a butterfly is flapping its wings on one side of the world, there are atoms and molecules which are displaced. And if another butterfly flaps its wings, they are further displaced. And if it keeps going on, there could probably be a storm or a hurricane on the other side of the world. So this thesis was submitted to the New York Academy of Sciences, and it was laughed upon, it was rejected, it was mocked. Till in 1990, certain physicists proved this thesis right, and it was accepted back. And it was given a name called the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. The idea is nothing but to just say that all of us are affected by each other's choices of actions and decisions. What Moses and Susan Carver did for George Washington Carver, for Henry Wallace, for Norman Borlaug, has affected your and my ancestors. And because of them, that has come to us also. So the formula is nothing but the choice you make and the action you take matters not only for you, it matters for all of us. What I take matters not only for me, it matters for all of us, and it matters forever. I hope that clarification was helpful.
Once again, thank you, sir, for your answer of the question. Now I request CA Dinesh Jain, Secretary CIRC, for his formal vote of thanks. Over to CA Dinesh Jain.
Thank you, Atul sir. Respected CA Manu Agarwal ji, CCM, respected CA Devendra Somani ji, Chairman CIRC, respected CA Atul Agarwal ji, Sikasa Chairman CIRC, and respected CA Harshvardhan Jaju ji, today's speaker. Sir, it's a wonderful session. और सर 2-3-4 चीजें मुझे आपके मैंने लर्न भी करी और मैंने इसको राइट डाउन भी करा और शायद ये आगे काम पे देगी. लास्ट में सर आपका मैसेज था कि बी ए वर्ब नॉट ए नाउन. सर अगर ये चीजें जीवन में उतार ले आदमी तो मेरे ख्याल से उसका जीवन एक डिफरेंट लाइन पे चल जाएगा. और सर जो आपका क्वेश्चन था वो रिचेस्ट एंड फेमस, सर ये सब कुछ बेकार है सर. यदि आपके लाइफ में हैप्पीनेस है तो वो जो हैप्पीनेस है वही आपको रिचेस्ट बनाएगी और वही आपको फेमस बनाएगी. बिना हैप्पीनेस के रिचनेस और फेमसनेस एवरीथिंग इज किसी काम की है ही नहीं सर. काम की जो चीज है वो आपकी हैप्पीनेस. अगर हैप्पीनेस है तो मेरे ख्याल से आप वर्ल्ड रिचेस्ट पर्सन आप ऑटोमेटिकली हो जाएंगे. और हैप्पीनेस सर बांटने से बढ़ती है सर. आज हम कई सारी फैमिली ऐसी है जो रिचेस्ट फैमिली है और वो किस तरह से हैप्पीनेस बांट रही है, शायद हमको फील हो रहा है सर. आज अंबानी फैमिली और दूसरी फैमिली भी है और वो किस तरह से लोगों के बीच में अपनी हैप्पीनेस को बांटते हैं और हैप्पीनेस सर बांटने से बढ़ती है. एक और चीज है सर आपने बताई बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज की अरोगेंस. आपको जो पुराना जो पास्ट एक्सपीरियंस, दो तरह का पास्ट एक्सपीरियंस हो गया, फॉरगेटेबल और अनफॉरगेटेबल. जो बुरी चीजें हैं हम उसको भूलेंगे शायद तो ही आगे बढ़ेंगे सर, और अच्छी चीजें याद रखेंगे तो जीवन में चीजें अच्छी बनेगी. जो वर्ड बोला सर पॉजिटिविटी, सर मेरा ये मानना है कोरोना को जो चीज हराएगी ना, कोरोना को एक ही चीज हराएगी, वो रहेगी आपकी पॉजिटिवनेस. चाहे कितनी दवा ले लें, कितनी हम काढ़ा पी लें या कितनी ही सर एक्सरसाइज या योगा कर लें सर, अगर आप पॉजिटिव नहीं है तो वो चीजें कहीं आपके काम करेगी नहीं. यदि डर डर के हम वो चीजें लेंगे तो शायद वो दवाई भी या वो काढ़ा भी आपके नहीं करेगा. पॉजिटिवनेस इज द मस्ट. विदाउट पॉजिटिवनेस कोई चीज आपके काम करने वाली है ही नहीं. इसके अलावा सर आपने जो बताया कि क्राइसिस इनटू एन अपॉर्चुनिटी, सर ये मेरे ख्याल से अपॉर्चुनिटी है इस कोविड की. अगर ये कोविड नहीं होता तो आप और हम और जो 500 लोग मिल रहे हैं, ये सोचना भी नेक्स्ट टू इम्पॉसिबल था सर. पहले वेबिनार में लोगों को बुलाना पड़ता था, अब वेबिनार में लोग आगे होके आ रहे हैं. तो ये अपने आप एक अपॉर्चुनिटी है. इस वेबिनार ने सर जो नेटवर्किंग स्ट्रॉन्ग करी हमारी, शायद इससे पहले वो कभी इतनी अच्छी नेटवर्किंग थी नहीं, या कभी हम सोच ही नहीं पाए कि नेटवर्किंग का एक जरिया ये भी हो सकता है. और मेरे ख्याल से एक जो नेटवर्किंग है जीवन में आपको आगे और बढ़ाती है. हर्ष जी, हम इससे पहले आपसे कभी मिले नहीं थे, लेकिन अब कभी ऐसा लग ही नहीं रहा कि हम आपसे कभी पहले मिले ही नहीं. लग रहा है कि हम शायद पुराने मिलने वाले, वर्षों के मिलने वाले, और बाकी लोग भी शायद इस तरह इसको सोच रहे होंगे. तो सर ये, और जो आपने अपनी जर्नी बताई, ये फैक्ट है सर कि माइनस को सर एक और माइनस लगा के वो पॉजिटिव बनता है, और उस माइनस में आपने माइनस लगा के अपने आप को पॉजिटिव बनाया, और इस तरह शायद हम भी अपने आप को आगे बढ़ा सके. थैंक यू वेरी मच सर इस पॉजिटिवनेस के लिए, और यही पॉजिटिवनेस हमको आगे बढ़ाएगी. और सर ये 4 लाइन हमेशा मैं बोलता भी हूँ सर, और इसी से शायद मेरे अंदर पॉजिटिविटी है कि यूं तन्हा बैठ कर ना देख, यूं तन्हा बैठ कर ना देख, हाथों की लकीर अपनी, उठ बांध कमर और लिख दे खुद तकदीर अपनी. थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू वेरी मच. जय हिंद, जय आईसीआई.
थैंक यू वेरी मच सर.
और सभी जितने पार्टिसिपेंट हैं उनका भी सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बिकॉज विदाउट द पार्टिसिपेंट्स कोई भी प्रोग्राम सक्सेसफुल नहीं होता. So we are really thankful to all the participants, the speaker, our respected chairman, secretary, and the central council members.
मुझे इंस्टीट्यूट से कनेक्ट होने का मौका मिला और मेरे नाम से पहले सीए देखने का मौका मिला आज. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर दैट.
राइट सर,
थैंक यू
सर. हमें उन सभी सीए को हम ढूंढ रहे हैं और हम उनको सर्च करके और इस प्लेटफॉर्म पे ला रहे हैं कि वो अपने नाम के आगे सीए यूज करें और हमारी ब्रांड इमेज को आगे बढ़ाएं. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for such a wonderful session. Throughout the period, it was houseful. 500 people have joined because we have a capacity of 500 only. Otherwise, it will be more.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Very happy to be with you. Thank you so much. Thank you, my friends, everyone who won this. Thank you. Bye-bye.